This is a video notes going with guided notes, solving equations by factoring. Okay, so just a couple little reminders at the top that you'll see throughout your notes. Any equation with an x squared is called a quadratic equation. Now that's important. Anytime somebody says quadratic, you know the equation is going to contain an x squared. Okay, that's a new piece of information for us. Okay. To solve this, we're going to use the idea of factoring each trinomial into two binomials, okay? So using the information we've used in our last 4 lessons, okay? Each binomial will provide you with an answer, okay? So this means every equation has 2 answers. The fact that it has an x squared, your exponent tells you that there is 2 answers. If I actually had something that said x to the third, I know that there's actually 3 answers to that equation, not just 1, but 3. X squared has 2 answers, okay? The other important piece is, and we'll see this as we're working, to be able to solve an equation by factoring, it must be equal to 0, okay? Before you can factor, you have to have your equation equal to 0. Okay, so let's take a look. I have 4 quadratic equations here, and we're going to solve by factoring, okay? The first 2 are pretty straightforward, easy factoring like a lesson 1, okay? So I see x squared right here, so that means I'm just going to have 2 binomials with x and x, okay? I also know that everything here is all positives and pluses, so it's going to be plus and plus. Now again, very quickly, 2 numbers that's going to give me 21 when I multiply and going to add to give me 10. Those 2 numbers are going to be 7 and 3 because 7 times 3 is 21. 7 plus 3 is 10. So I'm going to put plus 7 and plus 3. Okay. Now, here is where we're going to come up with our 2 answers. Now, I want you to think about something. It doesn't matter what's in these parentheses. It could be a finger and a finger. Okay. But if I take this finger and multiply it to this finger and come up with 0, I know something. One of these fingers has got to be 0. Okay. The only way you're going to multiply 2 things together and come up with 0 is for one of them to be 0. Okay. So that is the logic we're going to use right here. Okay. So what that means is either x plus 7 is 0 or x plus 3 is 0. Okay. If x plus 7 is really 0, that means x is negative 7. Well, I mean, that's a one-step equation right there. Okay. Well, if x plus 3 is 0, then I know then x would have to be negative 3. Right there are your 2 possible answers. Okay. X has either got to be negative 7 or negative 3. Again, how did I get that? This is a one-step equation. I just subtracted the 7 from both sides. Over here, I subtracted the 3 from both sides. Okay. Now, look at number 2. If I want to factor this is still that x and x deal, just like that. I have plus here, but I have minus here. So I need to multiply to get a positive, but combine or add to get a negative. So that means both of these are going to be minuses. So 2 numbers that are going to multiply to give me 72 and add to give me negative 17. That is going to be negative 9 and negative 8. Negative 9 times negative 8 is positive 72. But negative 9 plus negative 8 is negative 17. Okay. Now, I'm going to break these down just like I did right here. I'm going to take each one of these binomials and set them equal to 0. So x minus 9 is equal to 0. Well, if that's true, if x minus 9 is equal to 0, we know x has to be equal to 9. Well, if x minus 8 is equal to 0, that means x has got to be equal to positive 8. And right there are my two answers. Okay. Now, 3 and 4 are going to be a little bit more involved, just like we did with lessons 2 and 4 on the multiplying and factoring. Okay. Example 3 is just like lesson number 2. Okay. I need to factor this trinomial into two binomials. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to find out that AC is 3 times 9, which is 27. Okay. Now remember, we're going to look for two numbers that multiply to give us 27, but add together to give us 28. So two numbers that multiply to give us 27 and add together to give us 28. Those two numbers are 27 and 1. Okay. Now, we're going to take, oops, I left my X out right there. Put an X in there. Okay, that's a typo. So what we're going to do is break that B term down. Okay. Now, I'm going to put 27x right here and 1x right there. Okay. Now, we know the next step we were going to do was factor. We split it in half and factor. My GCF over here is 3x. Okay. 3x times x gives me 3x squared. 3x times 9 is going to give me 27x. Okay. Bring down my plus. Now, my GCF on this one is just a 1. Okay, because 1 and 9, the only thing they have in common is 1. So I put a 1 outside the parentheses, and that's going to give me 1x plus 9 inside the parentheses. You know, if you want to, put a 1 placeholder right there, equal to 0. Okay, now let's put our GCFs as our first binomial, 3x plus 1. Right here, I've got 1x plus 9. We know that's the same thing as x plus 9, just like that. Okay. Now, just like we did previously, we're going to set each one of these binomials equal to 0. My first answer is going to come from 3x plus 1 equals 0. The second one is going to come from x plus 9 equal to 0. Okay, well, let's go right here. Let's solve this. This one's a two-step equation right here. So solving it for x, I've got 3x equal to negative 1. Dividing x is equal to negative 1/3. Over here, there's just one step. So subtract the 9 from both sides, and I got x equal to negative 9. There's one answer, and there's the second answer. Okay. Now, example 4 is more like the examples in the day 4 notes for factoring. Okay, so the first thing again we're still going to do is find AC, which is going to be 6 times negative 7, which is negative 42. Okay, now we're going to look for two numbers that are going to multiply to give me negative 42, but add together to give me negative 41. Multiply for negative 42, add for negative 41. Those two numbers are going to be negative 42 and positive 1. Think about that. Negative 42 times 1 is negative 42, but negative 42 plus 1 is negative 41. Okay? So we're going to put this into our equation right here. just like that. Side over, start off the screen. What do we do next? We're going to split and factor. So GCF here is 6x. Now 6x times x gives me 6x squared. 6x times 7 is going to give me the 42x. And of course, that's a minus right there. Over here, I'm bringing down my plus. My GCF here is 1. Well, 1 times x is 1x. 1 times negative 7 or minus 7 gives me that negative 7 equal to 0. Now, pull our GCFs together to make a binomial, 6x plus 1. My other binomial is x minus 7, just like that. Now, we're going to break these into 2 equations so that we can get each solution. So I'm going to have 6x plus 1 equal to 0. Let's go ahead and solve this. So 6x is equal to negative 1 and x is equal to negative 1/6. There's one solution. Back here, x minus 7 is going to give me my second solution. And when I add the 7 to both sides, I get x equal to 7. Okay. Okay. So make sure you've got your notes copied and put them into your interactive notebook, and you can work on your assignment.